Miniature painting is an art, but why do we feel like it isn't sometimes? I would say most modern day miniatures are rooted in some type of board game or tabletop game. A lot of people see mini painting merely as a means to an end to have customized characters to play a game like Warhammer, Star Wars Legion, Malifaux, D&D, etc. And for a lot of people, it is. And sometimes I'm that person too. And that's okay. Traditional art, quote unquote, commonly is done for artistic expression, storytelling, flow, fun, something like that. Now, there's no reason that miniature painting isn't totally capable of these things. We can tell a great story with a mini by the choice you make with the color, skin, armor, the base, the background. If you paint it super weathered or super clean, those both express different thoughts and evoke our imagination in different ways. Regardless of what your goals are, whether it be to play a game, enter a competition, or just for fun, those things don't really differ all that much from traditional art. And I think that's my point, right? I would encourage you to paint minis with different goals. I think you will learn how to paint minis differently. You will learn new techniques and methods that work better for different goals. I know for me personally, when I'm painting a bunch of minis for a board game or Warhammer, and I'm painting 10 of the same dude, I'm not going to put my heart and soul and put all this artistic expression in each one of those. But if I'm working on a bust where I'm really trying to put my full effort into it and create a story and create some really epic and dynamic paint schemes on it, then my goal is going to usher in different types of methods and techniques to accomplish that goal. Oh yeah, but a real artist actually sculpted the miniature. You're just coloring it in. I think that this is the really essential and unique feature of our hobby, and that is kind of the marriage between sculpt and paint job. There are not a lot of other, hobbies, arts out there that you can take 10 different Space Marines and you can paint them all wildly differently, and you can learn so much from each one, and you can be inspired by each one. Even though it's the same sculpt, they're both painted to totally different standards, totally different schemes, totally different methods, and I think that's a really cool aspect of our hobby. Alternatively, I also think it's really cool to see how someone can convert or hit bash or sculpt on green stuff and totally change a miniature from how it was originally done and add onto it and make it new. Think of Pete the Wargamer. That guy does crazy things, changing characters to entirely different characters than what they were ever created to be. So I think this is a really unique part of our hobby and something we should celebrate, as opposed to kind of tear down or diminish. Sure, you can paint minis for any purpose, and the different ways people can interpret a sculpt is cool, but most people are just recreating other people's paint jobs. So I do think painting miniatures has an issue in the current modern day space. Now, I'm not going to name any names as to why I think this is the case, but I think you'll know why as I explain my opinion. Our niche at the upper echelons of it has become very focused on extreme technical execution. Is this a bad thing? Not necessarily, but I think it limits a lot of people into feeling like they can only do one thing to succeed at higher levels or to paint really high-end miniatures. I know for me personally, GW paint schemes in the heavy metal style influenced me a lot early on in my painting career, and thinking I had to paint only that way. I think that's why when I came across painters like Craftworldstudio or Sergiocalvominiatures and started exploring the painting process, my mind was kind of blown that you could paint miniatures like this. I had always kind of understood it as the GW process of, opaque layers with painting in shadows and highlights. I think a lot of the time we can be really focused on trying to recreate a scheme or a paint job or something on Instagram, and copycatting can be a really great method for learning and executing. If I want Dark Angels chapters, I'm gonna paint them like Dark Angels. But I would encourage you every once in a while to just sit down and paint a mini with very little plan. Maybe just start with a color palette or just one singular idea and grow from there. I think it's a great learning opportunity. It pushes your boundaries, and I think you can end up coming out with some really cool, unique paint jobs. Some of my best favorite paint jobs of mine have come when I had no plan for how I was going to paint the mini. I just kind of sat down, looked at it, and came up with it on the spot. I think as our hobby kind of continues to creep into mainstream a little bit, whether that be through celebrities or video games or movies or shows or whatever, I think it will start to invite more criticism in, and I think a lot of the time this is something that will creep in more and more, is questioning what this hobby really is. Now, ultimately, it doesn't matter. The hobby can be whatever you want it to be, but I think ultimately it can be just as great an art as any if you want it to be. I would encourage you, if you want to, paint more quote-unquote artistic miniatures, or to kind of create your own schemes and color decisions, to educate yourself on some traditional art concepts. I've learned so much about volumes, shading, and highlights from simple sketching tutorials and books, and from doing a little bit of sketching myself. I also would encourage you to broaden your field for the hobby and look at a variety of painters and hobbyists for inspirations. Here's a couple of my favorite. Painting miniatures is art. Maybe not all the time, but it can be if you want it to be. I would heavily encourage you to look at quote-unquote traditional painting methods and books and see what you can learn and get from them. I know that I have learned a lot from them, and has really helped me understand light and volume and colors and shadings, like I said before. So I would encourage you to at least look at them for inspiration, even if that's enough. But of course, as always, determine what your goals are and try to push your boundaries a little bit. I think it will be really exciting. I'd really like to hear what you have to say down below about this topic. Am I an idiot, or do you think I have a point? I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Of course, as always, like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And if you like my content, maybe check out this video. Of course, as always, elevate your game night.